I wasn't really planning on making a video this week until I sat down and watched the premiere episode of Zom 100. It's not often that I'm gripped so strongly by a series' first episode. However, this hit all of the right points for me personally when it comes to hooking me as a viewer. Basically, Zom 100 is a story about zombies, but it's also a little more than that. It's about the protagonist himself no longer wanting to be a zombie. Not like a literal zombie, but a zombie to the status quo. He gets his dream job working in production and has a great first experience, only for the crushing reality to set in. However, he hopes that this is just a one-off occurrence, but it's not. He works endlessly, returning home only to eat and sleep to prepare for work the next day, for years, to the point where he wonders why he even does this. Is it an appeal to his inspiration? Is it an attempt to live? If this is an attempt to live, then why isn't he living? Akira learns the hard way about the passion tax. All around the world, people are willing to spring on you and take advantage of your enthusiasm, something that follows the naive thinking of, quote, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. This is actually a studied phenomenon, and Zom 100 portrays it perfectly. A bright-eyed kid getting put through the ringer. Duke University's team found passion exploitation consistently across 8 studies with more than 2,400 total participants. Participants who read that an artist was strongly passionate about his job said that it was more legitimate for the boss to exploit the artist than those who read that the artist wasn't as passionate. This finding extended to asking for work far beyond the job description, including leaving a day at the park with family and cleaning the office bathroom. And this is central to Zom 100's first episode. It is a reflection of workplace exploitation, and an all-too-recurring theme that you are likely already aware of for Japan, especially if you watch this channel. Japan is quite famed for its bad working conditions, with hundreds of more hours worked annually than other developed nations. They also have a massive issue with unpaid overtime, with 37% of companies being reported to violate overtime laws. We also see the abuse of power dynamics through Akira's crush, Saori, and it is not really possible for two-way consent to exist here, and to be honest, it definitely does not sound entirely consensual. Witnessing all of this in Zom 100's 20-minute premiere episode, what it sets out to say is extremely apparent. It is a critique of the exploitative and alienating Japanese work culture, and that alienation leads Akira to feel like he has completely lost his own agency. Akira navigated his overemployed life feeling as if he were completely devoid of being able to make his own decisions. He would be pushed around by his managers, he would be pushed around by his clients, and he had all these lofty ideals of vacationing or things he wanted to do with his life that he was unable to do, all because of his employment. His inability to make that one decision, to quit his job and find work elsewhere, led him to never make decisions again. A lot of people might wonder, and I already saw some of these posts in discussion threads on the episode, why doesn't he just quit? There are a lot of factors as to why Akira was paralyzed by indecision. Japan, notably, has a culture of company loyalty, putting the interests of the business before your own. This cultural phenomenon spawned from lifetime employment, essentially guaranteeing graduates employment until their retirement date. For that reason, the employee is expected to basically pledge allegiance to the corporation. That is something Akira is likely under the pressure of. Not only that, but also the guilt that he explicitly talks about relating to shifting the workload burden onto his other coworkers. And it's not just that, it's the guilt of having to tell your superiors that you're done, and the anxiety coupled with that, as well as the guilt of failing the societal expectation of just working and shutting the fuck up. All due to that inability to make a singular decision, he lost years of his life. He would even go as far as to gaslight himself while watching things on TV about exploitative corporations. Oh, good thing I don't work for a corporation like that. As he stays awake into the morning, a phenomenon known as revenge bedtime, where after lacking free time throughout your day, you will attempt to compensate for it by bleeding into the next day, even at the cost of your health by staying up all night. In an extreme example, Akira lacks so much agency that he doesn't even feel capable of making the decision to end his own life. Instead, he sits by the train tracks and thinks about it instead. He hopes that by some stroke of luck or divine intervention, he will be struck down, all so that he does not have to go to work. I think for many older anime fans, this premiere episode hits probably too close to home. The dreadful feeling of losing your free time and missing out on your hobbies due to employment. The desire to stay awake into the night, even though you have a shift tomorrow. The basically disassociation as you go about your daily commute. That lack of control is something that a lot of people, myself included, can probably relate to as well. I say as I literally type this script at work. Back during my first job when I worked at a deli when I was 18, there would be times during the car ride there where I would hope that, just by some miracle, someone would ram into the car so I don't have to go to work that day. Zom 100 wears its escapism on its sleeves, literally making the protagonist excited to escape his daily life. A lot of zombie shows are a power fantasy, which isn't always a negative, but Zom 100 seems different right now. The fantasy is to escape work, something millions of people all around the globe feel every day. It is a heavy deconstruction and critique of not just Japanese work culture, but the system the world operates under at large. The series' first episode pretty intentionally seems to call into question the alienation of capitalism, the lack of autonomy or control the average worker feels from their labor, as alienation, when it comes to economic philosophy, can be boiled down to a surrender of control. Ultimately, the worker loses possession of their work. Not only do you lose ownership over your product, it also actively becomes hostile to you. Management having possession over what you produce is precisely what gives the boss control. Therefore, the more you produce, the more your boss has over you. The more your boss has over you, the less control you have. Due to that, the activity of self-expression is another thing you lose. You no longer engage in labor as a creative expression. It has no relation to your desires or the person you are, but instead is a means to survive. You work only to fulfill a physical gap, producing only for direct physical need. Freedom is then known as freedom from activity. What people consider their leisure time or their days off, they now equate to not being active. Freedom is consumption, because activity under alienated labor is not self-expression, but self-denial. That is when we get to our final method of alienation. Alienation from society. This is when Zom 100 nails into you that its initial premise isn't the zombie apocalypse, but the zombification of man. When you are alienated from labor, your coworkers, your community, end up becoming your rivals, something demonstrated from Akira's coworkers holding competitions about minute things like how much they get exploited. Our protagonist, inadvertently, becomes a corporate zombie as a consequence of long work hours, poor working conditions, workplace harassment, alienation from labor and activity, and a loss of agency or control. I'm not positive what the future of the series entails, but what I can say for sure is that this anime hit too close to home. I'm sure a lot of the contents of episode 1 of Zom 100 are very relatable to a lot of you, and that just goes to show how great of a critique of Japan's work culture and capitalism were packed into this 20 minutes. It isn't until the literal end of the world that life and color are added back to Akira's perspective. Juxtaposed alongside other zombie media, the end of the status quo isn't something terrifying or depressing for him, but in fact, regaining control is what gives him newfound hope. And there is something just inherently morbid about that. Let's see where the rest of the series goes, though. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for the funny YouTube algorithm. You can check the description down below to follow me on Twitter, where I'm objectively correct all the time. You can also join my Discord, where we talk about My Hero Academia, ReZero, Jujutsu Kaisen, and stuff like that. And you can also now become a YouTube member, which basically just gives you access to behind-the-scenes content, a little badge on comments, and live stream chats, and access to some emotes. Only do so if you want to support the channel, though. But that's about it, though. Thank you for watching. See ya.